Hey everybody, this is Mr. Schultz here, and we're going to be taking a look at Pythagorean theorem today. So this will be a quick little just kind of overview, so we're going to move through this decently quickly here. So let's take a look at what this is. So Pythagorean theorem is about this. It says about 4,000 years ago, engineers and builders in ancient Egypt used mathematics to build the Great Pyramids. They discovered and used what's called the 3-4-5 triangle. They discovered the Pythagorean theorem. So given a right triangle, a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So the leg, which is what we call this piece right here, so a is considered a leg, b is considered a leg, and then c is considered this fun word, the hypotenuse. So let's go to our blank triangle here on the next slide and take a look at this. So the leg and the leg are always going to be adjacent or next to the right angle. The hypotenuse is always going to be opposite of the right angle. So it's always going to be opposite side from the right angle. And also remember that the hypotenuse is always the longest side of a right triangle, which just means that it's a triangle that's got a 90-degree angle in it. So let's practice here. This will be a good one to have your calculator with. So let's take a look at this first one here. It says solve for the unknown side length in the right triangle to the nearest hundredth. So remember, our formula is just a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So I've got one leg because it's adjacent to the right angle, and I've got a second leg because it's adjacent to the right angle. So it doesn't matter if I call this one a or if I call this one a, but I just need both my legs to go in for these two numbers here. So I'm going to say 9 squared plus 6 squared should be equal to c squared. Okay, so this is where we're going to start to use our calculator. So I've got decimals up here, so I'm going to do 9 to the second power, and we're going to add 6 to the second power, and I get this number here, which is 117. So my last step then, so this is going to be 117 on this side, is going to be equal to c squared. So how I get rid of this squared sign, so I just find out what just c or the hypotenuse is I need to take the square root of this side. It looks like this. So it is this key that is right below the squared button. So I'm just going to go onto my calculator here, and I'm just going to take and I'm going to do the square root of that 117 number that I had before. And that's going to give me this crazy decimal. That's okay. Because remember it said round to the nearest hundredth. So I'm going to say 10.82 will be equal to C. And that's my answer. 10.82. Let's take a look at the next one here. So same type of thing. Got a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So again, I'm just going to plug in my legs. Doesn't matter which is which. Let's call 8a. Let's call 5b. So I'll do 8 squared plus 5 squared is equal to c squared. So again, here I'm just going to put this into my calculator. So I've got 8 squared plus 5 squared. I get a grand total of 89 is equal to c squared. Remember my last step, just take the square root of that number. The square root of 89 will be equal to c squared. Actually, if you wanted to leave it as just that as your answer, that's totally cool with me. But it did ask for the decimal in the question. So we are just going to figure that out here by saying the square root of 89. And that should be that number there, which is 9.43, rounding to the nearest hundredth. So both of these here would be the correct answer. Let's take a look at the next one here on the next. So now this one is slightly different. A squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, but remember that c is the long length. It's that word, the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse. So I'm looking for one of the legs, and I've only got another leg. So I might need to do a little bit of solving here. So let's say that x is going to go in for a, and that 10 is going to go in for b. So I'd have x squared plus 10 squared will be equal to, what is my c? Well, it's this 14. 14 squared. So I can go through and solve these things. So x squared just stays as x squared. 10 squared is equal to 100. And 14 squared is equal to 196. So now I just need to do a little bit of solving here, just like we've done over the last, during last week. I'm trying to find x. I'm trying to get it by itself. So I'm going to take off 100 on both sides, left with 96 on that side. This creates a 0, and I'm just left with my x squared, which is just like what we had above. So we just have to take the square root of 96. So let's plug that into our calculator. We'll take the square root of 96 and get this number here. So the square root of 96 is equal to 9.79, but I need to round this up, which then will carry over into the ones. So rounding it to the hundredths place, 9.80. So that's when you're solving for the hypotenuse. You do a little bit of algebra to solve for the hypotenuse. Try this one, and remember you're solving again for the hypotenuse. See what you come up with a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. All right, so going through and solving this here, again, I'm going to put my x in for a. So I've got x squared plus, put my 9 in for b, so it'll be 9 squared. And I'm going to put, whoops, not in for b because that is the hypotenuse, so that should be going in for c. And then I'm going to put 8 in for b. So this will be 8 squared be equal to 9 squared. So I'm going to end up with 64 is equal to 81. And I've still got my x squared. I'm going to solve this equation. So if I do it to one side, I need to do it to the other. And I'm going to come away with the number 17 is equal to x squared. Again, my last step, just take the square root of that. So x is going to be equal to the square root of 17, which I can, again, just plug into my calculator. Okay, fun, that disappeared for a second, but I got it back. So I'm going to plug this into my calculator here. And I just need to find out what the square root of 17 is. So I'm just going to do the square root and 17, and I'll get the number 4.12. So square root of 17 will be equal to 4.12, rounded to the nearest hundredth. All right, that should be it, and have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.